Well, hi, this is going to be another video where I'm not going to talk about media stuff so much. I'm not going to talk about a specific piece of media anyway. I also don't have a script, but no, what I'd like to talk about this time around is some changes that YouTube has made very recently. I think it was just a couple weeks ago that they sent out an email. I don't know if all users got it, but anyone who's considered a creator got it. And it basically outlined some new, I guess it was terms of service for using the platform. And one of the big changes that they, I'll give them credit, they were nice enough to highlight the change instead of burying it somewhere in the legalese. But they said, hey, we now have the right to monetize any video on the platform, regardless of whether or not you're in the ad partnership program, whatever it's actually called. And for anyone who might not know exactly what that is, if your channel is doing decently well and is past certain thresholds, you can potentially, you are given the option to sign up for the program where you get to choose whether or not to run ads on specific videos, and based on views, you will get a cut of the ad revenue. YouTube will split the money. Well, split is a generous term, but they'll give you a little tiny bit of money. I think it's like, is it after 1,000 subs and like a certain number of watch hours, you qualify for this. So anyone beyond that threshold can do it if they want. They can choose not to. So in the past, the only scenario where a creator wouldn't have full control over whether or not ads got put on their videos was if they had a copyright claim on the video, not a copyright strike, but just copyrighted material where now the holder of that copyright gets to run ads on the video if they want, and they would get any money that those ads would generate. So in the past, that system was fine for me because I don't make any money doing this. It's an exercise. I get to do a little bit of writing. I get to practice some editing tricks, and it's just fun, and it's interesting to talk about different stuff. One of the great and awful things about YouTube is anyone can do it. There's no barrier to entry whatsoever other than your own willingness to get something done and put it up. But in particular, there aren't a ton of benefits to having a really, really tiny channel like mine. This is a very small channel. I kind of enjoy that in a way because, for one, it means that I don't have to deal with all the weird, crazy attention and comments and abuse that tends to come from a larger YouTube presence. So that's nice. I enjoy not having that in my life. And especially, I have really enjoyed not having to run ads on my videos. There are a few in the past that potentially had ads on them because they had copyright flags on them, so the copyright holders could monetize those videos if they wanted. But as a direct result of that kind of stuff, I've made a real effort to not have copyrighted content in my videos, or at least not in a way where it's going to get flagged. I like the idea of being able to offer my little videos in a way where you don't have to be bogged down with ads and people trying to sell you stuff. I hate the current YouTube experience. It's had a huge uptick in ads over the last year, of course. Part of that is because they're paying creators less of the ad revenue, so the creators, to compensate for that, a lot of them have just put a lot more ads on their stuff. I get it, but it's made it a really miserable experience to be on this platform as a viewer, and I hate it. So with that in mind, I tried really hard to make stuff where I could say, nope, you can't claim anything on this. People can just watch it, enjoy it or hate it, and then move on. They don't have to mess around with the ads at all. I liked that a lot better, and I thought that was one of the tiny advantages of having this really small channel, is that I actually had control over that. But as it turns out, that control was very temporary, and now you might be seeing ads on all my stuff. And first and foremost, if you do, I apologize, because it's not my intention. It's not within my control. I'm not benefiting from it in any way, and neither are you. So that's the issue at hand that I wanted to mention, and I felt like it was a big enough thing that I could at least bring it up. But while we're here, I figured I may as well talk about a few other slightly larger issues that I have with YouTube, or that I've seen talked about with regards to YouTube recently. And why not? Why not voice a little bit of dissent, get into this stuff in a very off-the-cuff kind of way. So yeah, let's do some of that now. Here's a big caveat when you try to launch any kind of criticism against YouTube specifically, or really against any social media platform, is that we don't own it collectively. It's all privately owned stuff. We don't get to make decisions about how the companies are run. Yes, there's a certain level of appreciation I guess we could say, for having access to this stuff, like YouTube in particular, especially in the early days. What a gift. What a gift that people could just make things and share them with people and get very immediate feedback and try new stuff and hopefully get better at what they were doing. That's really cool, and that option is still there, technically, but like a lot of other social media platforms, it keeps getting bogged down and like made worse in these little tiny ways that I have a lot of problems with. And in particular, YouTube is really on the money-making side. There's been a huge push for like extremely corporatized, professional, and kind of cold content channels. I can't call them creators because it's not individual people. It's these huge monolithic companies now who realize, oh, we can make a ton of money on this platform, so we'll just churn out stuff. Watch Mojo comes to mind. I'm sorry, I don't like them very much. I never have. It's funny because I was thinking about this the other day, and all of a sudden I saw Donkey put up a video. My sense of humor doesn't always line up with his, and some of his stuff is not my favorite, but his criticism tends to be pretty good, and he speaks his piece, and I respect what he's been able to do. And he released this video. It's called something along the lines of, I don't make good videos anymore. And it was actually, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's basically talking about like, oh, I work really hard on this stuff, and I do try to maintain a certain level of content quality, but I just can't compete anymore in terms of output, or probably earnings as well, with these massive, basically industrial channels that just, their whole thing is the more stuff we put out, the more money we'll make from it, and therefore the quality is zero. Quality is nothing. They're just churning stuff out. It tends to be very, very bad. But since it's there and since it's convenient, people are going to watch it. I love that video. I think it was actually a very, and obviously Donkey has a much larger platform, so maybe it'll actually do some kind of good in terms of making people aware of the degree to which these enormous channels have established themselves and made a bunch of money on content that's basically garbage. And just by coincidence, the other day, I found I was first exposed to Kids Diana Show. Are you aware of this channel? It's aimed at kids, and it's out of Ukraine. And the level of success this channel has seen is unbelievable. I think they're like the 12th biggest channel on all of YouTube. They're like the 4th biggest kids channel. And then I watched some of it for some reason. The videos have hundreds of millions of views, and it's awful stuff. And I know I can't speak. I'm not a child. I'm not 5 years old. I can't speak to that perspective, but it's really, really trashy. It's ugly. There's nothing to it. It's miserable to see. And I'm really not trying to say that channels and people who are really successful on YouTube tend to make bad stuff. Definitely not necessarily true, and there are a lot of individual creators out there who make some really, really good stuff and have found a huge amount of success. You already know who they are, most likely. But it is a little bit worrying in a way, because I do think all of this speaks to a larger trend, not just within social media, but within a lot of internet culture spaces, I guess we could call them, where they really are being absorbed by people who just want to make it work for them and want to take advantage of the people who use the platform to make some scratch. And I think that's awful, and I don't know what we can do about it at this point, which makes me very sad. And at this point, specifically with regards to YouTube, it's gotten to the point where I'm wondering whether there's really that much room on the platform for people who are making stuff with real intention, or who are trying to say something very specific, or who actually do try to create something of quality. I mean, there certainly has been so far a space for those types of creators, and that's great, but how long until they get pushed out, or like how long until they're not making any real money from it? And therefore, who's going to be motivated to make quality stuff in the future? Like, what is going to be the drive? And yeah, there's always going to be the level of like, oh, I just want to make something. That's kind of where I'm at. I just want to make something to put it out there. It's a fun time. But there's this idea in contemporary media criticism, and I'm sorry I can't pin down who expressed this idea, or I saw it recently, but it was the idea that it's actually pretty important for there to be well-paying jobs for critics just within any given culture, because that signals that that culture and that society values that type of job, that it values that type of work. And when a given culture doesn't value a specific type of work, fewer people are going to do it, and very few people are actually going to do it well. Face it, we all need to make some money, we need to make a decent living, and if it's not an option to do something well and get paid a decent amount for it, that stuff of quality will disappear, or at least be drastically minimized. And I kind of see that here on a very small scale. I'm not saying this is the most important issue right now. I don't even know if I can call it a very important issue, but in the past I've been so impressed by people who have made their presence on this platform a real thing, and who make actual art on YouTube, and they just put it out there and people can experience it for free, and it's immediately more accessible than any art that gets locked behind some kind of paywall or exclusivity thing. It's just there for people to experience, and that's a really wonderful thing, and we can't count on that to last forever, especially right now, and that has me worried. If you're curious, a lot of this happens to tie into a guest post that we did. I guess we posted it a few weeks ago, the SEO video, and we had a friend of ours who is an SEO writer. They wrote a really nice piece that got to a place of critiquing automation in a lot of different industries, and specifically within content creation and clickbait stuff. There are genuine concerns there. Like it or not, ethics do need to be a consideration for giant tech companies and social media companies and stuff like that. It really does need to be. No, we are not owed, as the viewers and the community here, we're not owed anything necessarily, certainly not on a legal basis. We're not owed anything from these privately held companies. But at the same time, it does matter how we're treated. Like, it really does. I guess that's the point I really wanted to get to. Like, you're allowed to be angry about this. I don't know if there's any major recourse in terms of trying to reverse this stuff or minimize it in any way. Like, I guess you could technically write to YouTube in an email and say, hey, this is bad. I mean, it probably won't help. It's something, but in the meantime, in terms of watching my stuff and trying to avoid seeing ads on it, if you're watching on any kind of computer, and I think this would probably work for your phone too, but use an ad blocker. I 100% support it. They're free. I mean, you can donate to them if you're feeling nice, but like, ad blockers are free. As far as I know, they still work perfectly fine on computers. YouTube hasn't messed that up yet, but I do not mind at all if you don't watch any ads on my stuff. It's completely unimportant. Skip them as much as you want. Do whatever you can to get around them. It's awful, and I never wanted that stuff to be here, and now I just don't have the choice anymore. And you know what? That's about it. I'm sorry for talking so long about this. I'll come up with some easy visual I can have in the background so it's not the most boring thing ever. But no, I will get back to talking about some animated stuff if that's what you like to see from me in general. I'm finally in the process of watching Primal, the Genndy Tartakovsky show that he did for Adult Swim, and I'm pretty excited to talk about that and get into that in a more traditional vein, and in terms of what I used to write about here. So if that sounds cool, you can come around for that. I have a lot of other things that I would like to talk about now, and in general, I hope you're staying safe and finding ways healthy ways to distract yourself from more pressing issues, whatever those might be. And that's all. If you stuck around for all of this, gosh, wow. Thank you. You're the best one here. You win. It's like a marathon. It's the Iron Man competition. Cool. All right. I don't have an outro. Thanks for stopping by.